right, today we're going to talk about time studies and how to make your production more efficient. And Aaron, we want to do 3 or 4 minutes. I know we could do an entire show on this, so I will try to be brief. But this falls right back into the program we just had about I don't have time. I can't take 15 minutes here. Can't take 15
Yep.
minutes there. And something that I did along with a course that I took was to block out 15-minute segments of my day and just write briefly what I was doing in that 15 minutes. And maybe 30 minutes of it, I was eating lunch. Well, I write lunch in there. And you will be shocked to find what you really spend your time doing. In my scenario, I was spending 60% of my time on some level of scheduling production. And I remember the instructor in the class said, "So that's something you personally have to do?" And I'm like, no, I have a formula that I use. And you could teach someone else to do that? Yes, I could. So I hired a part-time person. It was a perfect job. It was a mom who had to get her kid on the school bus in the morning and had to be home when the bus arrived. So she worked in that window and scheduled after really a small amount of explanation. She started doing all of my scheduling and filling in my schedule book and scheduling each press. And it just opened up my day on being able to manage the business as opposed to being caught in the minutia. And you fall into this.
Yeah.
It starts as a brief thing, and all of a sudden you find that you're spending 60% of your time doing it. I had no idea. I was
Yep.
stunned at that. But
Okay.
Aaron, what's your take on that?
Yeah, no, I think that's exactly like this is what it's all about. So we don't have time management problem. We have a priority management problem. And this tool right here will give you the information you need to change it. So Terry, let's talk about that. Let's get what like nuts and bolts. What's the simplest way we could go about doing this?
Well, one of the things that I do is tracking downtime, because most of us in a screen printing shop, and I think in most decorating shops, we pretty much have the actual printing, the production part of it down. It's everything else that costs us our time. So I have, once or twice a year, I will have these stacks of sheets at the end of the dryer belt, and every time that press stops, they write down the time. And then I have all these categories of why it was stopped: looking for merchandise, question for the art department, didn't have all the tools at the press. And they'll check it off and they'll write down when they started up again. And I'll take all those things, all those sheets after a week, and compile them and say, okay, we were down for 7 hours and 15 minutes because of issues with products. In other words, we didn't have the mediums, or they didn't bring the smalls, or they brought too many extra larges. And what I'll do is I'll break those down according to what cost me the most time. I'm not going to try to fix every problem. I'm not going to take all 12 categories and say, okay, today we're fixing all these things. The thing that cost me the most time, I'm going to work on and find a way to solve that problem. And after I do that, what was next? What was my next problem? Now we're going to focus the next couple of weeks on fixing that problem. And, Aaron, I've done consulting in production shops where I say, I can double your production in 30 days, guaranteed. And people are like, that's impossible. It's not impossible. That double in production is all based on all the other things that happens in your shop when you're not decorating a garment. And I've never failed at that. I have always been able to double production in any production shop. And even though the owner's like, can't happen, impossible.
Not possible.
We're very efficient.
Yeah.
So anyway, but Aaron, I'm a pen and paper guy. You're a technology guy. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, sometimes we like the technology, right? Because we think it makes it easier, and that's not always true. So the simple method of pen and paper probably the great place to start. But if you really want to kind of dig into this, there's it's a little cube that you get. So it's called Timular, and I'm going to put the link on the screen here. So timeular.com, and you basically pre-program the cube, and it's got these different sides. And every time you switch to a different part of the process or something's down or whatever, you program that, and you just flip the cube over, and it's automatically tracking whatever is up on the cube at that moment. And then as soon as you flip it again, it changes and it's tracking the next thing. And so it's just really a way of tracking it without having to write it down. If you want to do it another way, where you're doing kind of like the pen and paper, but you're just entering it, there's also a program called Toggl, Toggl tracker. And you can actually put it on your phone. It can be on your web browser. So it just tracks, it helps you kind of manage and track your time of what you're doing. But then I think the important part here, Terry, is you started talking about the categorization of it. So can you just, let's close out with that. Tell us about categorizing that review, and then I'll talk a little bit about the honest self-reflection.
Well, I think part of that is, and nobody knows more about your production floor than your production employees. And so I'm going to go out there and I'm going to sit down with the people running the presses, the people at the end of the belt, and say, let's talk about what's costing you time, what's keeping you from getting product from point A to point B being the shipping department, and start breaking down those categories. And there might be some categories that you weren't aware of. Maybe you're waiting for paperwork from the front office, and you had no idea that everybody was kind of standing waiting to get paperwork. And so you build your categories like that. And as I said, but track it for a week, and because there are anomalies in there. But if you track it for a week, then it's really going to be easy to then total those things up, and then start saying, okay, you know what the solution was? I was losing the most amount of time on the product being pulled in correctly. Well, I had to go to the expense of a second person in the warehouse had to recount every order. And did that cost me some additional time? It did. Did it completely eliminate that problem on the production floor? Absolutely wiped it out. Absolutely wiped it out. There were two things. One, it was recounted. Two, whoever counted it the first time signed their name. Whoever counted it the second time signed their name. Signing your name to something makes you, Aaron, honest.
Exactly. and with that, right, it is that honest reflection, right? What are the data's there. You're going to hide from the things, right? So maybe you're doing this for yourself, right? Okay, I am actually scrolling Facebook way too long, right? I just have to be honest with myself, right? I can't just willpower get away from it. So maybe I need to delete it off of my phone, right? So that's that last part. You have to take action on the information, or doing this time study is just a waste of your time. So any closing thoughts, Terry? So we kind of put the last little bit of paprika on the sauce there.
I think we've covered it. I think everybody, it's going to be unique to what you do, but spend a little time thinking about, especially downtime. Think about downtime and start tracking it. And I believe that's our secret sauce.
There we go.